We are visitors on this planet. We are here for 90 or 100 years at the very most. During that period, we must try to do something good, something useful with our lives. If you contribute to other people's happiness, you will find the true goal, the true meaning of life. With this quote by Dalai Lama, I would welcome you to our podcast episode. It has been a long time since the last episode came online, so I'll welcome Daniëlle on the show. And how are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm feeling good, and I'm happy we can start giving podcast again, because the last one we upload I think is already maybe 3 months back.
Yeah. I think I didn't tell
maybe
you
even
the
more.
Exact date. Like there's also an app where I can see like when our last podcast came online. And it was 15th of November, so almost 3 months back.
Yeah, it's a long time.
Yeah, I think for some of you, maybe you might have seen on social media why it was like this. We of course like to do podcasts, and but we also see it as not something that we do like as a hobby.
Yeah, it's something
during our
extra
business.
we do.
Cloaked, and I really like to do it as well. But we are expecting a baby, so thanks a lot to everyone who congratulated us at this moment. If you got to know now,
yeah.
And I think some of you who follow us on social media, you already know about it. We shared about it recently during one of our posts, and that was the reason why Daniëlle had to do to take things a bit easy in this period.
Yeah, we really did the things that we had to do, like things that are important, like the cooking workshops we are giving, and like we already mentioned, the podcast is something extra, and we just didn't had time for it. I didn't have time for it, but I'm happy that we can continue the podcast now.
Yeah, it's really nice. We in these times, the goal for us to start with the podcast was to share our conversations on different topics with a wider audience, because we come from two very different cultures, two different countries, very different upbringing, and it's nice to share it with also other people. So we thought that it's nice to share these talks. So in the last 3 months, it's not that we didn't have these talks, but we didn't get the time to really record them, and that's why we would like to start with it again. We already had 2 episodes, and now in this episode we are going to take things a bit easy.
Just a bit of a light subject.
Right. Yeah. Just start with some differences between India and the Netherlands, and then
our perspective of it.
Our perspective of the main differences between our countries where we are born and brought up in.
We're going to divide them, I think, in some subjects. And then for each subject we're just going to talk about things we find different from.
Usually we have some guiding topics or questions, but this time they are just some words, some you can go deep into them as much as you want, but they're just things ranging from food, because we are busy with that's our job, that's what we thrive on, that's what we like. So we start with food, then we go to family, then we discuss differences based on our upbringing in that part as well. On privacy, it's really nice. Daniëlle wanted to include this one as well, because it's also sometimes funny, the differences that exist, and I think mainly from the India side, I think, for you, but some things for me as well, from that side. Communication, a bit related. Everything will also
related.
Be related, but we'll try to focus on these things, and work, because we both are colleagues together now. We are working for almost 2 years together. I worked in Netherlands for around 3 years before this. Daniëlle has worked quite a lot She has seen how the work culture in India is as well. I have seen my parents working almost all their life in India, so it's really nice to also share that.
Yeah, let's start with the food, because I think also we have the most to discuss about food. And if I can start with the biggest thing, I think in India food is way more important than in the Netherlands. I think that's the first thing I noticed, the difference between India and Netherlands.
Isn't that so in all countries except Netherlands? I've not been to many countries, but the countries I have been in Europe too, I think people in the Netherlands, now I'm generalizing here, but also based on my experience from the limited number of people I have come across, there are exceptions, of course, but they put less emphasis, less importance on food in general.
Yeah. If I see how I grew up, like in my family, food was never that important. Of course, we got some breakfast, but it was like a fast breakfast. It was not like I've seen your mom in the kitchen for breakfast. She for sure is busy for an hour preparing breakfast. I think my mom did it in less than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's already a difference. And for lunches, it is the same. Where your mom is really cooking a meal, my mom was just giving me some bread with...
Yeah. Or you could buy something at the canteen, maybe at school or maybe outside.
No. When I was at that age, I was making my own bread.
Yeah.
That's also a difference, I think. But when I was really younger, under 12... then my mom was just giving me some bread, maybe some fruits, a cookie that was already bought from supermarket, and that we got with us to school.
Yeah, so it was more of a eating to survive culture.
Yeah.
And India, it's like the other way around. So it's surviving to eat. Yeah, not eating to survive.
Yeah, and there's also a difference. In my family, both my parents, they don't really like cooking. So especially if they came back from work, they wanted things easy. So they were just boiling some potatoes, they were warming up some beans, and that was it.
Yeah, we see that also through the cooking workshops that we give. The people who join our cooking workshops, they're already open to learn new things. But from my experience, I have also seen, and that's also the reason that sometimes we change the recipes in a way that it becomes a bit easier than the whole process. For example, if you have to ferment something and leave it overnight, or soak beans overnight, or the batter for dosas, which are like Indian pancakes, South Indian breakfast option. Those kind of things we try to find alternatives for, because people hated to spend so much time in preparing for their food. So they want to have everything ready in a limited amount of time, and the reason is because most of the people who are working, they have a strict schedule, so they have to. Most people start early with work in Netherlands. That's also a difference. That's the last part that we'll discuss, but it's related, so that's why I'm saying that. In India, people start usually a bit later. In Netherlands, when I was working I was always up around 6, and then preparing. Then you're at work, depending on what kind of work you have, between 7 and 9. For India, that's early, because some people start as late as 11, 12 o'clock. At work, my father, when he worked, he used to go pretty late, sometimes 1, 2 o'clock. Then he would also come back late as well. Same for my sister. She's working now in India. She starts late as well, but then working late into the evenings. And people eat early in Netherlands. So that means when you're done at work between 4 or 5 o'clock, between 4 and 6, so it depends again on what kind of work you do. You are hungry because all day you worked, and for breakfast you had an easy option. Mostly it's like some kind of sandwich. I would call it sandwich, but in Netherlands you call it boterham. That is just bread with a topping.
Or oatmeal or some yogurt with fruits.
but yeah, not something very filling
No.
usually. And then throughout the day, you usually have some snacks, coffee with mostly a lot of coffee for most people, or tea, depending on the preference. And for lunch again, a sandwich. So it's very rarely that people, maybe 1 in 10 people who I know would take like a soup, like something warm to work, like something left over from last night, or almost no one I know that they stand in the kitchen in the morning to prepare their warm lunch.
Yeah, most people, they have during the day light meals.
Yeah.
And that means that when they come home around 6 from work, they are hungry and they want to eat as quick as possible, and they don't want to spend too much time on it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I was working in a company where I had 2 other Indian colleagues, and with the 3 of us, we like for us our lunch time was really important. So we worked till around maybe 12, in the afternoon. Then usually most people between 12 and 1 they were having their lunch. For us, lunch was about like taking time to warm up food, to have nice conversations. So not eating at your desk, going to the canteen or going to the kitchen area and sitting on like a different place than where you work. Talk about things related to work, outside work, about friends, family, travel, whatever, India, and take really the time to enjoy, and spend that time together. But most of the Dutch colleagues, they sometimes they would come by, but like to have a conversation or to taste some of our food, but mostly they would eat on their desk, and they would just keep working while they are eating.
Yeah, now you're telling this thing, I'm coming up with some other differences, because it was not like you were cooking in the morning before you left to work. What we did most of the times, that in the evening we made enough food. Yeah. So you had some leftovers to take to work for lunch.
It was planned.
Yeah. But that is also a big difference with India, because in India most people say eat fresh.
Right. Most households in India, they it's even this way that what you cook in the morning, most people would not eat in the evening. Like even if there's something left over, it's just not in the culture. There are reasons also for that. Like it's a warm country, really like humid. Many people don't have like refrigerators or freezers. Forget freezers. Like even refrigerators not. And with that environment, like within a few hours, the food is contaminated, or it's already starting to ferment, and it just becomes foul.
Yeah, and in Netherlands, the climate, especially in winter, is like that you can save things for quite some time.
Yeah.
And we get a lot of times the question with our cooking workshops, oh, can we freeze this? And then we always have to tell people, we don't know, because we never freeze things. We always eat it that day or the day after. Yeah.
So usually we are also looking up on the internet a way to freeze that particular thing, like be it samosas or parathas or any kind of Indian snack or bread or curries. Yeah. It is possible to freeze most of them, because it is usually just a lot of vegetables, grains, beans, things made with bread.
But it's just not in the Indian culture to do, because of what you explained. Yeah. But in Netherlands, I know from my family, especially my grandma. Yeah. She's having a fridge full, a fridge full with the freezer. The freezer, she's having full with things to eat. Yeah. And every time, she's also alone. So every time she's feeling like, oh, I don't want to cook, she's just getting a portion out of the fridge and she's
that's also pretty smart. But I think in India that will not really work. No. For younger people, I know, I think, I'm not sure if you saw that, the freezer section in India when we were there last year. So last year and last year we went there. It is there. Yeah. And it's slowly increasing as well. So, but it's mostly among younger people who are working like late hours and they're living on their own, or then you see it, but for most of the people it's not a thing.
Yeah, and this we mentioned already a bit, but like warm meals, they in India they ate most of the time warm meals.
Yeah.
They prefer 3 times a day a warm meal.
Yeah.
And in the Netherlands, most people eat 2 times a cold meal and 1 time a warm meal.
Yeah, right. I also got reminded all of a sudden of a funny incident as well, where I remember when my mother was here in Netherlands, when my family was here, we went to, of course, your place, to meet your parents. We went to also a couple of my friends' houses, and what my mother saw
I know
at that
what
time,
you're going to say.
Yeah, she saw that the kitchen was always clean. It was like spick and span, as you say, it feels like it's newly built and
but it's not
never
used.
been used. Yeah. And she was really surprised always. She said, that's really nice of them that they can keep the kitchen so clean. But what she didn't know is that Dutch people don't really spend a lot of time in the kitchen anyway, and the things that they cook, they are often not creating a lot of mess.
Yeah, especially like the breakfast and lunch part.
Yeah.
It's not really something where they use a lot of pans for. It's just they get some bread out of the fridge, they are putting something on top of it, and they don't really use a lot of kitchen things.
Yeah.
Only for
people,
dinner they do.
The people we know, of course, there are exceptions always, so I hope no one gets, we don't want to offend anyone. Because there are many people who love to cook many different cuisines and try out things, and they use almost every utensil that they have in their kitchen, and their kitchen is full of all kinds of things to help them cook. But the people we know and are in general, the perspective that we have is it's the kitchen is not used a lot. So just for a reference, in India, like my in our kitchen, you know as well, when we were also cooking a lot for the cookbook that we have, it was very difficult to find time. There were slots where we could do our thing in the kitchen, because it was always occupied. Sometime it would be my grandmother in there cooking for lunch, or making a flat Indian bread, or preparing something for the evening or the day after, or some religious ceremony. My mother would be there in the morning, for sure an hour. On weekends, it can be many hours spent in the kitchen, 3 to 4 hours just for food, and during the week, a couple of hours, so, just like that. And then that doesn't include the cutting work, because at my home it's done more on the dining table. So if you include that, it's
and that is also because in the kitchen there is not enough space for the cutting work, because there's already so much in the kitchen happening. Right.
And there are many different types of food as well that are cooked at the same time. So Indian meal would mostly consist of, a lot of people in India are eating vegetarian most of the time. So it would consist of some dal, so that's like a lentil curry / soup. Some people in Netherlands call it soup, but in India it's not really seen as soup. And then there would be some freshly prepared bread every day, or rice, or both, depends on. And then many times 2 different kind of vegetables. It depends. Sometimes it's one, sometimes you mix 2 or 3 in one. So one really good example, which is eaten a lot at my home, and which is also very famous from a cookbook, is the aloo baigan palak. So it's like the spinach, aubergine, and potato curry. So you just have all these 3, they come together as a meal, and it takes time to prepare that, because this is just one part of the day. And then you also have, for example, if this was for lunch, in the evening there will be a different option altogether, a different kind of lentil, a different kind of vegetable, maybe rice, or chapati, or some kind of Indian flatbread.
For me it was really an eye-opener to see in India how busy people are with food compared to like where I was used to.
So it was, if you're busy, it's almost half a work day in the kitchen. Different people, of course, especially if you're living in a bigger family with more family members. So there's often, very less time to keep everything organized. It's just not possible because you're using things again and again, and you clean it and then someone needs it for another dish.
For me it was also really funny to see that in India that I really love Indian food and I could eat it every day. But some moments I was just like looking forward to eat something else. Like for example, it's like I was finding this really funny, like a pasta.
Yeah.
And then at around 6 in the evening, I was just making a quick pasta for myself, and I was eating it, and I was really full from that.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times your mom came to me, the dinner is ready.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just had my dinner.
Pasta is not food.
No.
It's not considered as food. No. It's just like, it's considered an unhealthy snack in most cases, unless you take the effort to like buy whole wheat pasta with a lot of vegetables. So
but even
70%
then,
vegetables.
it's not really dinner.
No, right. Yeah, it's just that what they're used to. I think, especially the older generation. They have a particular thinking about food. But I think we should move on from food. I think we discussed enough in this part. We can always I think we can make a whole new episode on this topic.
We said in the beginning there's so much to tell about food.
But let's move to family. That's also interesting one because do you want to start with some differences that you notice from your perspective?
Yeah, I think for me the biggest difference was that when I met you, I noticed that your family was calling every day.
Yeah.
Like every day, sometimes till now, like we know each other now for more than 5 years.
I think you can count the days that they didn't call me in the 7 years that I'm living in Netherlands. You can count them on one hand.
Yeah, I think that too.
Those are the days that they didn't call me, and many times, multiple times a day. Or I call them as well. So
for sure they are calling one time.
So the rule is that you speak to each other at least once a day, and then you know like what you're up to, how your day was, what you did, what you ate for lunch, dinner. Like that's really important. That's something also. I've never seen in the Dutch culture. Like I've hardly ever seen you talk with your parents about like what you had for breakfast or lunch or dinner. And sometimes it's like that if it's special, but otherwise, it's not normal to do that. Yeah,
and for your family, it's kind of the first thing they ask, like, oh, what did you have for lunch? Did you already had lunch?
Yeah.
Or do you start preparing dinner now?
So a lot, as I said in the beginning as well, like it's more, it's like surviving to eat and not eating to survive.
Yeah.
So in Netherlands, it's more like, you eat something so that you can just keep going on to survive. But in India, it's more food is a really central part of the culture, and everything goes around food. Be it like everything related. Also in the family, like festivals, weddings, the big fat Indian weddings, how it's known. The biggest attraction at any wedding, like people think it's the bride and the groom, but no. It's all the food that's there on display.
And when you're saying this now, I remind one more funny thing, that when you took me to the first Indian wedding, for me, my first Indian wedding, there was like outside, there were all like stalls with like street food things.
Yeah.
And everything was so delicious. So from every stall, I almost tasted something. And I was so full. And then I got to know that dinner still had to happen.
That was just the starters package, so it was just to warm up for.
And I was so surprised by that because in Netherlands, you also at some weddings you get food, but it's so different than in India.
Right. Yeah, things like pani puri, pav bhaji, like samosa chaat. These can be just complete like meals in the Dutch culture because they are so filling. But in India, these are just snacks.
Yeah, and I had so many of them.
Yeah.
And then I walked into like a big room with like a whole buffet with ice creams and sweets, but also curries and dals, and I was like, how am I going to fit this?
Yeah, that's also a difference.
Yeah.
But coming to family, you mentioned the calling or just having contact with your family, how it is.
But for me that also changed, because I think because I see you talking so much with your family made me also call my family more often.
Yeah.
Not every day.
Yeah.
But I think once every few days I call with my family. And when I'm in India, I call a bit more with them, because then I'm farther away from home. So then I call a bit more. But I think for most people, especially for most Dutch people, it will be a surprise that, your family is calling you every day. And sometimes, especially in weekends, even 2 or 3 times a day.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, the biggest culture difference, or the point that stuck to my mind, was I knew already before I came to Netherlands that it's not a culture where there's a culture where people move out usually from their parents' house at a certain age. It depends, also a lot on economics and how things go with the housing market, for example, between the age of in the 20s, somewhere in the 20s. Earlier it was more early 20s, and now it's late 20s, sometimes into the 30s. It's mostly because of how the housing market is. But what surprised me, because I come from a culture where my parents would never say to me that, oh, it's now time to move. In Netherlands, many people or many friends that I know, their parents don't, sometimes it happens that they say it directly, but it's more indirectly kind of trying to tell the kid that or not
it's
kid anymore.
Now.
It's time to find your own place.
But it really depends for each family, because my parents never did that with me. I was 20, I think, when I went out of the house. They never kind of forced me to go. But there are stories that parents just say, okay, it's time now to leave.
Yeah, I heard also in Europe there are differences. In Netherlands, I think they are more much more easier with that. But I know some countries, I've heard about it from people I came across from the Norwegian countries. I think just after 18, maybe now it's also changing there. They expect that they behave really like an adult as well. At 18, of course, for official purposes, you are not a child anymore. You're an adult, but then your parents really expect you to behave as an adult. While in India, at 18 you're still a kid, and you are completely dependent on your parents. You will not have to work part-time, or you will not be asked to work, for example. And here I've seen, when I saw here in supermarkets, children, I would say children, but they would be a bit older children than
around 15,
16, they're working just in normal jobs. Part-time jobs mostly. But in India, you don't really see that much. Of course, there are other problems. There's child labor, and there are a lot of issues in that regard. But generally, if really not needed due to economic circumstances, in a middle class family, or even now middle to upper class family, it's not really expected that you should really go to work, for example, at that age.
You're saying now that till 18 you're seen as a kid. But for me, I think in India, if you're as a kid coming home, you always stay a kid.
Once a kid, always a kid. For especially for your parents, doesn't matter you're 20, 30, 40, you'll be treated as you'll always get special treatment that is reserved for small children in Netherlands.
And for me, it was really a bit weird to see that from home. I was used to it to be more independent. When I went to high school, I started to pack my own lunches, and I was helping in the household. And what you mentioned, I also started working when I was 16. But even now, if I come with you to India, I'm feeling like a kid there. because everyone is taking so good care of you.
Yeah, but that's also not a good thing. Like in this part, I think most of the points I would give to like the Dutch culture. Like it's not a competition. Like I don't want to make it that way.
No.
We always, otherwise, we would always have fights, because we are brought up in such different ways. We try to recognize that, and we try to learn the positives from both sides and try to find a middle.
Yeah.
And that really helps. So I think here also finding a middle might be a bit difficult, but still I would more prefer that children or adult children, I would call them then, like grown-up children, they parents or the culture should make sure that they become more independent. And I think I see that as a problem in India because there's a lot of dependence on your family for a long time, almost all your life.
And for you, that changed a bit because you went to Netherlands. But if you would have stayed in Netherlands,
in India,
you would still be dependent on your parents for a longer time.
Right. By moving, you learn, like especially to a country like Netherlands, that you are responsible for yourself, like for everything, like for paying your own bills, cooking your own food, cleaning your own mess. Everything you have to take care of it. While those things in India you can sometimes share with people, especially as children. Again, there are differences. Like if you're not well off economically, then you have to usually do more at home in ways that they are really not nice to mention even. And if you are well off, your parents are capable of putting food on the table and have shelter for you, and then usually you don't really have to do much at home. Yeah.
I think that's a big difference, and I think what you also say, both are having positive and negative things.
Mm-hmm.
And one other thing I would like to mention in this family subject is that for me was quite surprising to see that in Netherlands when sometimes it's difficult because I cannot talk for everyone, but for most people in Netherlands, if your parents are having a car, for example, it's their car, or it's their house, it's their stuff, it's their TV.
Right.
In India, everything in the house is for everyone.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's kind of more, you get more like a community feeling, like as if you're living in a community, and that's I'm just used to that. I also like that because for me it was also a bit of a culture shock, like in Netherlands, like it's more like more independently divided among people, especially stuff. And in India it's not that way.
For example, I have to ask my parents that, can we maybe use your car today? Well, in India you just say, does anyone needs the car, otherwise I take it.
Yeah, that's true. And also what's also funny is, for example, imagine like my parents want to get a new kitchen at home, then they will really listen to me if what I have to say, and even though I'm living here, I can really influence a lot of decisions, ranging from which phone my mother is going to buy till which car they are going to buy. My parents always consult us and listen to us in that aspect, because they also know, me and my sister, we are millennials, we do a lot of we just have more with gadgets, more knowledge, and they just trust us that we will make the right decision for the family. So not even for them, but they see for the family, so they just leave it to us. Before it was not like that. When we were like children, of course, then they cannot really trust us. But in Netherlands, even then, in the end, it's the decision of the parents, what they want to do in their home, for example, or where they want to go on a vacation, and those kind of things.
What is also surprising for me to see is that your parents are not only asking you for advice,
Yeah.
but I also became part of the family. So they even ask me sometimes, like, hey, what do you think of this? What should we do?
Yeah, and I found it quite funny, like to see your reaction on that as well, because you're not used to that. For example, if your parents ever they want to get something new, they would ask you like, what do you think of it? But in the end, it will be their decision. It's about what they like. So it's not like you say, oh, paint the whole house yellow in color. No way, they are not going to do that.
Yeah.
Because it's their house, they live there. While if I can be sitting here in Netherlands and I can say that, oh, I like the orange color on this wall in the bedroom, they will do it.
Yeah.
So...
Okay, let's mention one more thing that comes up to me. Like, I think one important thing, you already mentioned that families in India are living more together.
Yeah.
While in Netherlands, kids are moving out. But also a big difference is that everyone is sleeping together.
Yeah, not everyone. But like it's normal. But I think a lot is also from need then, because I think a lot of people, if they get the option, they would want their own room. Like, I didn't know, like it's about, it's the same story as like a frog in a pond, you know, like if you just don't know better, then that's the normal for you. Growing up for me, it was just normal to share the room like with my parents till a certain age, till the age of maybe up to 8 or 10. Like for some Dutch people, that would be really surprising, because I know people put their, even babies get their own room like at 1 month. That is something was really surprising for me from a culture point of view, because I never can imagine that in India happening. But then also I shared a room then with my sister and my grandmother till the age of 18 almost. 18. And then I had my own room, I think 3 or 4 years I had my own room, and then I came to the Netherlands. Then I had to live by myself till I met you. So for me that was normal.
Well, in Netherlands, most children, most people, they have their own room.
And also what I remember, I think maybe in Netherlands it was happening before, because I have talked sometimes with some older people, and it's normal, for example, if they have a relative living in Canada, for example, because there are quite a few people who left for America and Canada in the 1900s or something. And when they come, like older people, they're fine with having them over, you know, like at home. But what is maybe not normal, and in India it is that when there are big gatherings, then usually what's happening, you have too many people at home at one time. Especially, just take an example, if there's a wedding somewhere. I remember like a cousin sister of mine was getting married, and they usually hire places, so it's very unfeasible and also expensive to get everyone their own room, because in Indian weddings people come not by the hundreds, by the thousands. So it's really difficult. So usually you have these halls, and mostly people are sleeping together on the floor next to each other, quite close by as well. And then usually like the men are sleeping at one place, the women at one place, and the children, they get their own corner, like all the children together at one place. And for me that was normal. In Netherlands I have never heard that this ever happens.
And I think also the reason for that is that in Netherlands, Netherlands is a small country, so most people, if they have a wedding, for example, it's 1 maybe 2 hours max driving. While in India it can be like really
it can
big
be thousands
distance.
of kilometers, because from north to south it's like 3,000 kilometers, east to west is also the same. So you have to travel a few thousand kilometers if you want to reach a relative far away somewhere who's getting married, then it's not something that you can do in a day. And most people travel by train, sometimes 2 days in a train to reach their destination. And so a lot also has the reasons for it as well, because It's such a big country, such a diverse country with with like all different kind of food, culture, people. Yeah.
Yeah, it's still it's I think for me, if I go to India and there's not a lot of space, it would be really normal for me to sleep with your mom, sister and grandma in a bed.
Yeah.
Or in a room. In Netherlands, I can never imagine to sleep with my mom, sister and grandma in one bed.
And why is that? It's something that you like, do you consider that like very awkward, or do you consider that just not part of who you like, the culture, or
I think
what stops you from doing that? I'm curious.
It's just that we're not used to it.
Okay.
I think that's
so it will be quite awkward to do that.
Yeah, I think if you're growing up as a kid, like, they sleep together, it's fine to sleep together, it will be normal.
Yeah.
But if you're not growing up like that, it's a bit weird. Bit awkward, like you're saying.
Yeah. I understand. Okay, but I think we discussed enough in the let's move to the privacy part, which is also quite a bit linked. Like I think some things overlapped already, like as like sharing space, for example, sleeping together like in big groups in a small area. That is also like kind of, then you lose your privacy. So privacy is not really a thing in India. Mostly, from my experience, what I've seen, especially compared to how it is in Netherlands, where from a young age you get your own room, your own bed, your own closet. These things were kind of luxuries for me, or luxuries that I didn't know about even at that age, because it was just normal. I hardly had any friend growing up, even in my school, who had their own room. They were always like sharing it with someone in the family. So so anything else related to privacy that you find a bit a bit different?
Yeah, that it's like normal to talk about money.
Oh yeah.
And your salary.
Yeah, that's right.
At least in India, that's normal.
Yeah, in India, it's quite normal to do so. Yeah, that's true. I really don't know the reason why. Like I think like with most things, people are not that shy of hiding something from people. You know, most people lead a very simple life. Then I'm saying most people, of course, like there are also people who are sophisticated. They went to like private schools. I also went to private school, so some people will label me in that category as well. But and they don't find it an issue to just share all details of their life like with people, because then I think people think that they have less to worry about. Like in India, there's also a saying, if you're sharing your sorrows and your happiness with others, then it's just better for you, like mentally as well. Like especially if you're sharing like your problems with others, because a lot of time when people talk about money, like I can guess two moments. One is to show off, that also exists in India, like, oh look, like I got such a good job with nice pay. And maybe in Netherlands, that's why people are a bit like not want to talk about it. Like there's also not a culture where if you have money, that to show off to people, like look how much I have. Again, you can go deep into it, like, and find its roots in religion, like in Catholics and Protestants and those kind of stuff. But we'll not do that. But yeah, in India, it also exists. But then also there are people who talk about money because they have money problems, and they cannot manage their money good, or they complain as well about like how expensive everything is, and this is how much I'm getting paid, and this is how much I'm spending. Everything is getting so expensive. So it's just part of a daily conversation, like, and just as with everything, people, even on the streets, they find it just normal to ask other people, like, how much do you make? And
it's just a normal question.
Like it's not seen as awkward to answer. It's still, as I mentioned, there's some people, especially the rich, who have a lot of money, they find it maybe a bit intrusive to answer this as well. But it also has to do with safety and all, like if you're a millionaire and on the street in India, you will not tell how many millions you're having, because they always, the more money you have, you'll also be more scared. That's what I feel. So that's a little bit about privacy.
And then we come a bit to communication. There is just one or maybe two things we will mention about that, because it's a bit related to other things. But the biggest thing is the biggest difference, I think, is that in India people are not that direct. And in the Netherlands people say what they are thinking.
I always told you, I hope you remember, like in the beginning, like in India, 80% of the conversation is non-verbal. So it's how you behave, your hand gestures, your head. Like most people always ask me about the Indian like head nod and what it means. It can mean thousands of things. I think you already know that. We also saw last video about it as well. But from my experience, it's done more in the south of India, from my experience, and in the north as well. So most of the conversation is non-verbal. And things can be interpreted in many different ways as well. So especially if you are not used to the culture, you don't know what certain things mean. And like sometimes like silence and just gestures have a lot of meaning. In southern Europe, I also see shades of that sometimes. Like in Italy, for example, like using also a lot of hand gestures for many different kind of things, and they would just, the same words would mean something completely different if used in combination with a different hand gesture, for example, or different tone.
For me it's something I really had to learn, is that in Netherlands, when I'm telling a story, I'm used to it that everyone has an opinion about the story. In India, what's happening a lot of times, if I tell a story to someone, it can happen that no one reacts. That doesn't mean they didn't listen or that they don't find it interesting. They just don't react directly on it.
Right. And if I speak for myself, like for me it was more difficult just because of that reason, of all the long pauses that are there in India, to really speak up in a group in Netherlands. For example, if there's a birthday party or a group of friends, it again depends from person to person, but usually everyone has a story, everyone says something, and there's a really small gap and you have to recognize that, and then you have to jump in.
Yeah.
If you miss that, then
you have to wait one more round.
You have to wait around, or you never get your chance to say something.
Yeah.
You have to just keep sitting there. And it's not that people usually would just ask you questions out of curiosity, and it will be a slow kind of conversation about different. Also, the things that are talked about are very different. It depends also from family to family, but I've seen in Netherlands, like it has I've seen multiple times that like it's normal to tell what you did in a day, or how your week was like, and what all you did, with like the specifics. So every specific that you can imagine would be in there, like what kind of coffee you drank, for example, ranging from that to which supermarket you went, and how,
it's just a lot of details.
In India, all that is filtered out, like that is just extra information, and most of the time people are not really interested in that, or it's just not part of the culture to talk about that much.
No, I already know, I think this podcast is getting a bit long, but I hope everyone missed us so much that they will be fine with it. Because I would like to mention one more thing, because I said in India people are not direct. But my first time to India, I was really shocked by this question.
Yeah.
In Netherlands, people don't talk about weight.
No.
Like, we don't talk about weight if someone is fat or skinny. We just don't talk about it. It's really rude to do that.
Yeah, it's seen as fat shaming and
But in India, the first time I went to India, I think we was for 1 or 2 weeks in India, not more than that. And we came with all your family together, like your parents, your grandma, your aunt, your uncle.
Did someone ask you your weight? I'm
no,
not sure
I remember.
That.
I remember that your aunt asked me, "Do you find your mother-in-law fat?"
Yeah.
And I was shocked by the question.
Oh yeah, and she was also sitting there, of course.
Yeah, your mom was just sitting next to me, and I was like, I don't know what to answer on this, because in Netherlands that would be really rude to mention.
To mention, okay. Yeah, see, I living here 7 years, like I also sometimes, I try to stay out of controversy, so I often prefer not to bring those things up. But for me, like that question was normal in India, but now if I look back from your perspective and your upbringing, then it's not normal.
It's something I would never forget, because for me, now I'm used a bit to the Indian culture, and I know it's normal to talk about weight, and it's fine joking around it, especially in the family.
In India, it's more joking around, like on those topics a lot, like especially if like these kind of things. If people are wearing glasses, for example, it happens also a lot at school. That was also reasons many times I was not wearing my glasses. I stopped wearing them completely when I came here. Like people would other children would tease you for that, because we had a school uniform system, so like people find other stuff on how you look to like pick you up and make fun of you. It's not good, so I would not advise anyone to do it, but it happens.
Let's move
in India more than here, I think.
To the work things.
Yeah, let's
I think you
round
have
up
most to say about that, because you worked in Netherlands and you know a bit more about the work culture in India.
Yeah, I think the first one is the hierarchy. Like in Netherlands, it's I remember the first time like I got down from the train and took a bus. I had to take a bus to the university, and then I saw the bus driver, like he greeted me, and that's something I'm not used to. Like in India, it's not part of the culture to greet each other like that, like hello or good evening or...
No one, or just at work not?
Not generally, like no. If you go to a supermarket, for example, like have a nice day, could you find everything that you have? Like those kind of things are not, you just, it's just normal to give your stuff, they scan it, or get in the bus, show your ticket and go and sit down.
That's it.
It's just normal. And I was also surprised by how good looking that guy was. Like and
I think where's this conversation going? Which guy?
I more mean like in India there's always a kind of preconceived notion that if you are doing certain jobs, then you would look a bit shabby. Like you are not wearing good clothes, for example, your clothes are torn, or you're from a lower class, you earn less money. In Netherlands, it's not like that. So I more mean in a way that if that bus driver with the kind of clothes he was wearing, like he was just wearing kind of a suit outfit. If he would just
in India, you could be a banker with the outfit.
He could be a banker. That's what I mean. So there's a lot of judgment on that in India, and because of that, there's a lot of hierarchy in the kind of things you do, and that's something I also don't like. I would like that there would be respect for all kind of people and all kind of work. That I would like to see more, which is there in Netherlands. Of course, some people would say in many sectors it's not. But then there are different problems. At least like there is a system of minimum wage, and there is it's much better organized, to say it that way, like in India.
But for you it was also really normal sometimes to have a talk with the boss.
That also. In India, like if you're working, like you have the corner office and you're the CEO of a company, it's usually you are not accessible to the normal employee, like let alone the employee who just joined like last week. You don't have just the time for it. But in Netherlands, it's like you can just go to anyone in a company where you're working. You can go to your boss and have a conversation about something relevant, of course, like otherwise, or not even. If you're at a coffee machine, for example, you can just have a talk. But in India, people will be too shy to do that. They will never even dare to go to the boss and say something.
I remember in Netherlands when I was working as a receptionist for an old age home.
Yeah.
It was the time in COVID when we had to close.
Yeah.
And I remember one evening I was watching the news, like what's happening around the COVID situation and the old age home. And the director of the old age home, he came to the reception, he got a chair, sit next to me, and together we were watching the news.
Yeah.
That is something that will not happen in India.
No. Or I remember I saw a video of the Prime Minister of Netherlands, so Mark Rutte.
Yeah.
He dropped his coffee like somewhere, and he took the time to just clean it himself. So as I said, like cleaning your own mess. I mentioned it also earlier. So I think it's in the upbringing.
Yeah.
I think most people will do that. Like, doesn't matter if you are like the prime minister of a country, or you are driving a bus, or if you're a cleaner. Like, you are responsible for your actions, and in that moment you don't think that I'm like the prime minister, so I let like someone else clean for me. You just do it.
Let's mention one more thing. I think is nice to mention that you always tell me that in India people follow more the herd. If I say it good. Well, in Netherlands, we have more freedom to choose.
To choose like what people want to do later in life, like or for a career. I think there's more freedom here than in India for sure. And I think in India there's a lot of peer pressure. So growing up, what most of the children are doing, like your parents expect you to do that as well.
And I know which things that are.
Yeah, becoming an engineer, a doctor, just the normal. I think it's famous worldwide, like that. India or going into IT. That's also engineering. Those things are also expected of you, and it's very seldom that people ask like, what exactly do you like and what would you like to become when you grow older. In Netherlands, I think there's more freedom, maybe sometimes too much freedom to choose and do like what you want, but I would prefer that more, that everyone can switch also easily. Like you can study for something and then you think this is not really something where I would like to invest more time in, then you move
on to something else.
Move on to something else. The difficult part here, what I feel, is that for everyone, it's easy to say to follow your passion, like especially at a young age, but people, that can mean so many things, because that can change at every moment. Like what's your passion? It's an open question with multiple answers at different points in your life. So I think we did quite well. We almost used up an hour.
I think we can talk up for 1 more hour, because there are so many differences to mention, but I think we got the biggest ones.
I think on the topics of food, family, privacy, communication, and work, finally we discussed our perspectives on the major differences between the two countries that we are from. It was a nice talk. I liked it. It went quite nice. Like it went like how it goes usually. Even if we are not talking like on the podcast, we can also talk like an hour easily about these things. And it's a nice topic to begin with the second season. Like after 2 episodes. So but
bit of a restart.
But next week we'll be back with another topic, and thanks a lot for listening. Let us know, like there will also be a blog about this topic, so you can react to us or send us a mail on social media. You can reach out to us with any questions that you have. And yeah, we wish you a nice day ahead, and see you next week with another topic of the Heygroentje podcast.